Valentin.
Hey, sorry, bedeckt.
No worries, you're the only one. I
I've,
think Ali said that he will join. I don't know about Rob, maybe he's not available today. It's the last one of the year, so let's wait a few more minutes.
the last one of the year?
Yeah, because next month is Thanksgiving, so no one will be around. And then we have Christmas holiday, so the 12th of December. Actually, the last one, the 20th of December,
Okay,
skipped as well.
makes sense. You're good to know because I think that on GitHub the events asked. Oh no, okay, it's marked as cancelled. Okay, great.
In November, you mean?
Yeah,
November and December,
November
yeah,
and
exactly.
December.
Both are marked as cancelled, yeah.
Oh, I haven't even added my name in the.
That's Marco.
Hey, Pascal.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
I'll add myself to the thing.
Very good. Take this shovel. Need some light. Let's see, maybe Ellie joins later, but otherwise we can start already. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome. So please add yourself to the agenda. I will merge the pull request quickly through. Oh, there we have already. This one is from Valentine. You have to sign your agreement. Maybe it's the wrong email address in your commit. I don't know.
Oh,
This one needs to be signed as a collaborator. Do you use the guild email address or your private one for commit?
I think I'm using my own.
Yeah, if you use the guild,
Oh.
then it's already accepted. Or you can just say you want to join as an individual. That's also fine.
I will see.
Okay, so by being here, we all agree to the membership agreement, participation guide, contribution guidelines, and code of conduct as usual. These meetings are published to YouTube once we are done, and there's also going to be an LLM and AI summary after the meetings, so that we can actually read this up afterwards. So, step 2 is introduction of attendees. Hey, I am Pascal, and then let's go Valentine first, and then Marco.
I am Valentin from the guild.
Yeah, I'm Marco from the Dog. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so we already have a volunteer which does take notes. It's the LLM. If someone else wants to make notes, that's also very much appreciated. You can just do a pull request afterwards and put it into the notes folder. And I will do a few notes on screen, which will then also be added to the repository. Today we will have a look at the error discussion that we had last week. I'm not sure. I think you both were not around. Actually, Valentine, you were around, right? You joined. You joined also last time. So I did a pull request regarding this, so we can have a look at it. We can then asynchronously review it, and then we can have a discussion about meters. Is there anything else that people would like to talk about today?
Just in general for the basic semantics that we're coming from like a few months before, is it just a matter of like getting more reviews like for the basic semantics, Pascal?
You mean to get it merged?
Yeah. Like to because we to put in the main repository and stuff like that. Yeah, are we like are you waiting personally for something specific? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just have to go through. So when we do the pull request to the main semantics conventions repository, I think we should do it once we are complete here. So we do have the once we have the errors, we only have the meters open because I doubt they will use log except the log events for errors. And then we can do the main pull request. I also say since like 2 months that I want to reach out to Trask, but I always forget, and every single time when we have this meeting, then it will pop up again in my head in the morning that I should have reached out to him. But we now have a couple of months before we have the next meeting. So the next meeting will be in January. And then I think that we can probably quite quickly progress to the proposal to the semantic conventions.
Yeah, sounds good. Just to clarify, so I don't know if I caught who would you say you wanted to ping?
Trask. So Trask is from he works for Microsoft. He's from the Open Telemetry Foundation. He was part of these meetings in the beginning, and is very good at picking. It's very good at picking his brain during these meetings. So he joined the first couple of meetings, and then because our schedule is essentially a bit off, like we always like, it's a bit my fault. I update the agendas too late, so he probably thinks that the meeting do not happen. And then he does not join. But I have his email, so I can actually reach out to him and ask if he wants to join in January, and then we can have a look over what we have and any open questions.
Okay, sounds good. That's Trask Stalnaker from Microsoft.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Just in case we all forget, I'll reach out to him. But yeah, okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Cool.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We can also yeah, open
Yeah, cool.
open an issue and tag him. Okay, so what we have discussed last time is the thing that is open and the big question is a bit what we do with errors and events. Now, in this pull request, essentially, I've added a very much, I mean, it's very much a copy of the structure of how the log, like the events are structured in semantic convention. So, sorry, the error events. When we go to semantic conventions and we say that we want to see the log semantics, then we have exceptions here. And you see that we have exception message, we have exception type, we have exception stack trace. And we discussed this last time, and we said that this is actually not a graphical error. This really is just an exception. And in case the resolver throws an exception, this is also what should be logged. Like, we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. For graphical, we will just use the exceptions. Now, these exceptions can also be used on an operation level, right? the root span can also have exceptions on it. But they're not really suitable for graphical errors because by definition, a graphical error has a very different shape. So the proposal is that we essentially take this and we do like we roll a bit our own. So we also have a graphical error message, and the error message is intended for developer to blah blah blah. I mean, this is quite clear. It's the message, right? And this is one of the properties that we have. And then we have another attribute which is called the graphical error location, which is a map, an array of maps. And I just skimmed through the how this is done in other places in the OpenTelemetry specification. Essentially, you can have these two sub fields where you have line and you have column as the properties. And this is the locations that will look like this. That's actually wrong, but at the point. And we have the path, which is the usual, right? We have user. This is also wrong. It should be int or string. And should actually be a JSON path, not an arrow array, but you get it. Not a string. You see, I've reviewed this like 3 times today, but when I present it, I find the issues, you know. And the last one is something that we have added, which is a bit optional. And this is the graphical error extensions code, which is very well known in the ecosystem, but it's rarely used. It's not officially in the specification, but it's like something which is very recommended. So, for example, here would be a hot chocolate specific error code that you can essentially add to group the errors. Now, how are these errors used? Also there, I took a lot of inspiration from the way that the exceptions do it. Traditionally, these are events on the span. They can also be log events. That's a bit the newer way of doing it. So I've checked at the moment in the OpenTelemetry specification, both are supported, and we'll just do the same thing. We will have it as events, and we can also specify it as log events. For me personally, it's actually quite important that, and I need to verify with Trask, but the idea is here. But it's quite important for me that the events, the error reporting on events is still a thing, because traditionally it's a lot easier to get telemetry data, to get tracing data, or rather than logging data from customers. So when you want to have insights into your telemetry or into your graphical gateway, we can convince customers relatively quickly that it makes sense that they send us their trace data, whereas their logs data is, even though it shouldn't be, sometimes highly confidential. Like, you know, you shouldn't log PII data, but you know how people are, so they will log PII data, and that's the reason why often logs is a bit more, it's a bit harder to get a customer to send. So yeah, any questions so far?
Yeah, I just want to say, like in general, I have a lot of opinions about this, but like so, I did work for Datadog internally to surface graphical errors as spin events beginning of this year, Q1, and I have my internal RFC here, and funny enough, yours pretty much looks the same, which is good. Like it's like because at the end of the day, like you said, Pascal, it's like you expose information that the error payload has, right? Like the message, the location stuff. I think I chose the same compromises for locations and path. So you said it's like, is it a? I think it is a list of string, isn't that right? Uh,
Yeah, but I think in general, like we said in the registry, that
yeah.
we want to use JSON path, and I think that we should probably go with this. So we do have path.
for the would be for the path, right? Yeah. Yeah, that seems fine. Either way works because we talked about this before, like you said, for path from the base one, which is like we don't have
Did you
support.
use on the semantic conventions repository?
And I think we also discussed this before, which is like in the future for log events, OpenTelemetry, you can have maps, but now we have heterogeneous maps and they just make everything complicated. Yeah.
So
We don't have to, yeah, I don't.
it's not only for log events, like all attributes everywhere can be of type map and can have value any value. So
Mhm.
essentially you can build any JSON structure that you want in this. Uh, it's just not easier for backends to work with it. Like I know like Datadog.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you guys actually have an open telemetry ingest, or do you only have the like I know that you have optimized libraries for literally all of the different languages, but do you also have just this very simple open telemetry endpoint where you can send trace data to?
Yeah, we have all the combinations. You can just send OTLP directly. You can send TLP to collector. You can send TLP to our yes. But
I
we
mean,
have
that's what
all.
I expected. I would have been surprised if you say no, but
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, so like if you just send OTLP data, it's just like super annoying to work with JSON objects in on the span events because it's not only for us implementing the collectors really annoying, it's also really annoying for the user because then they have to think about how they now query this data. Do they query it with the usual DSL that whatever
Yeah,
Datadog
yeah.
or Elastic or whoever is using, or do they query it with some weird JSON syntax?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a compromise that today it seems fine to me. Uh yeah, it when you talk about it like this, it sounds like the optimal way would be like if this is used in many places, we should actually define a native path type or something that's like general, but like anyway, this is
Well,
really
the path, I don't worry. Like I think JSON, this one here is not so it's not so bad. We can just,
yeah, yeah.
I think there's system. I'm not sure. Does Datadog have support for JSON path querying?
In some places it does. So like if we send like this, I can just like work internally to extend it to there. But yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, this the locations is a bit more tricky because this really is a typed object, right? And I don't think that we can get around it. I think we need to have it. If it was just an object, it would have been no problem at all. But as locations is an array, it's a problem. If it was just an object, we could just do graphical arrow location line, graphical arrow location column. But as it is an array, this just makes everything much more complicated.
Yeah, yeah. Like just so you know, what I did for my implementation, not the same, and it's a compromise. Is uh, I remove the key that's the keys line and column, and then I just send a string. In this case, it's a string with three, and then column, and then seven. Just like a short notation. But it's a compromise just to make things work. I don't know if I made it clear. I can write there.
Right?
Yeah, with a column, not dash, like you would index like on an
Yeah,
editor, you know? Yeah. And then that's what this example will be. It's an array with one
Bible,
string. Yeah.
the Bible phrase, the Bible reference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because then it was a list of strings. It was easier for us. But I think the map seems good. I think that your map suggestion is good.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Compromises.
I also I doubt that querying by location is something which would happen a lot. Uh,
Is by the way, is this map the value of the map is it any value? It is any value, right? And the keys.
well, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, yes, it is. When you go to the protocol and you look at
Yeah, I think of the protocol. Yeah.
any value,
I know just look at the proto.
yeah, yeah. This one, right? OpenTelemetry Proto. And then we go to
It has to be, right? I think it has to be.
um,
Is that in common or are you following? Yeah.
I think it must be in common. So we have any value, and any value can be a list of key values, and key value can be a key value which has a key and then any value.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
That must be the map, right?
Yeah. That's the map. I'm pretty sure. Okay, but it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, like everyone that reads that will assume that it's string to. It's annoying that we can't semantically define that's like string to integer, I guess. Can
We
we?
can, we can. It's
Yeah.
fine. So 1 second, let me go back. We can define the fields of the map. So these are int.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, okay, that's great. Okay, perfect. Okay, no notes. Great.
So that's the reason why I chose the map. Because I also was like, well, does it really make sense to choose the map here? And then I saw it in the other implementations of this, in the other definition. I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like if we can define the actual structure, then let's do it because then it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Okay, that's great.
Nice.
Yeah, the only thing.
Just
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead. Continue. No, go ahead.
We also recently discussed error handling in with Lauren, which is working on tracing on Hive console, and we had an idea that it would be interesting to have the schema coordinates of error. Like we have a path, but the path is linked to a document, and it's not that trivial to understand and to retrieve the schema coordinate that correspond to this path. So we are trying to see if we can also add the schema coordinates of where the error happened, so that later in your environment, like your UI, you can just have a list of schema coordinates that have a high error ratio or something like that. Because path can be pretty much anything, and it's difficult to gather all paths that correspond to a specific field in your schema.
Yeah, I feel you. Like this is actually interesting. I will talk to Benji. Let me ping him so I don't forget.
For now, we are making a quick poke around it, so it's a bit hacky, but we forked. We already have a fork of GraphQL.js runtime, so we just added in the extensions of the error the GraphQL the schema coordinate, and we stripped them out before sending the error to the actual client because it can leak the schema. So it's security wise, you have to be cautious with this.
Well, because of an error? I mean, exposing the coordinate because of an error. Yeah, I mean, that's a stretch. Like, I don't think that's a security issue.
It gives some
It gives you information about
informations.
what the type name is, but
Yeah.
like, what's the point of hiding the type name? Like, if you find a way to produce an error on a server, then this essentially would also, yeah.
I do agree, but you have to think about it at least. But
It could in fact be a problem when you would treat nullability errors and things like this as well. So you
So
could
you're removing stack traces because stack traces have even more information, right?
well, stack traces like don't ever expose it. Like we have it disabled by default. Like if you have an unhandled exception and it's thrown, it will just say unexpected execution error. But in Hot Chocolate, there's a way to switch it to enable it. And you don't want to know how many production APIs I've seen which have this flag enabled, and then they just expose the exception details to the world, which is a problem.
We are doing the same thing. We are masking unknown errors.
Yeah, but what we have found out over the years is that as soon as you introduce security feature, like the first thing that will happen after you have introduced security features is how, like, people asking you how to disable them. That's the first that will happen after you made this. Right. Yeah. So I like your idea with the coordinates. We have to think about it because that could actually be interesting for correlation that you see from which coordinate this error was raised. We do kind of have a link between the resolver span and the error which could be thrown, but I'm not sure if this makes sense. Because the error which is thrown on a resolver is most likely not a graphical error. That's most likely an exception.
Yeah.
And to correlate the graphical error on the root trace with a field the coordinate would actually be very helpful.
And you don't always have a span for this particular resolver where the error happened. Like in our case, we just never trace resolvers. For example, in JavaScript, we never trace them because it's like a huge, huge performance hit.
Yeah, you have the problem that the promise is really expensive in JavaScript, and as soon as you wrap a resolver, you got a promise. So it's a bit like it's very ecosystem specific. It's a problem which is very ecosystem specific in JavaScript.
We can work around it, but anyway, just wrapping with a new function is already a cost.
Yeah, no, if I remember correctly, the issue is that to check if a field returns a promise makes the field a promise. And then you have the huge performance hit, right?
We now have utils in Yoga that allow you to just fake and have a sync path if it's not a promise. But then, like the problem is that OpenTelemetry API doesn't allow you to start a span and then cancel it if you don't want it anymore. So you have to create the span. Then you check if it's a promise or not. But then what do? You can't just cancel the ongoing span. So I didn't found any workaround for this for now, at least.
It's not simple.
No, not simple. The only thing I was thinking is just having a quick win with just seeing if the resolver is the default one or a custom one, and you just always trace custom ones, because most of the time custom ones are actually async. It's not always the case, but most of the time it's the case. But yeah. Or an allow list, a list of resolver or schema coordinate you want to trace. But it's a bit painful to do.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the allow list. Like in big schemas, this doesn't really work nicely. But yeah, same.
It's a pain.
I think
or having a directive in the schema which is not perfect either, because
Different
then
concern, right?
yeah, it's not really a schema concern. It's just a better API than Hololist. So yeah, that's why we don't have resolver spans for now.
No, but I see the correlation between the graphical error, like the information about the path is lost, and you would actually have to parse the scheme, parse the operation, traverse the path, then load the schema and check, like, okay, parse the operation, load the schema, traverse the path, and check what coordinate you have in the path, which is way too expensive. So let's see.
And can be very tricky because you can have aliases, you can have interfaces, unions.
Yeah,
It can be very tricky.
that's true. Let's see. We'll find out. We'll find out. I will talk to Benji because maybe this is something that we can add to one of the other specifications as well. Because I don't really like working with extensions because it's a bit ugly.
Yeah.
We would define extensions in the semantic conventions because that's not the intention of the extensions. Like this should actually be proper things. But the code is something which is so common that we may just define it.
Yeah, we define code for ourselves too when we're doing our thing, because just like you said, it's just so well adopted and it's pretty well defined. I'm not against having code. I think it's okay.
Yeah, that's what we discussed it last week, and we were like, well, code is more or less something that like you want code. Like I'm literally, we can probably remove the extensions and we can just say it's graphical error code and we don't care where it comes from. But it's definitely going to be an opt-in because not all graphical servers have it, right?
Yeah. That's how we did. I think I'm with you with keeping extension just because it matches the when you inspect the payload. My vote for now would be to keep it. Anyway, I'm in agreement with you on this. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure if we need it here. Because do we care in telemetry that it is an extension? Like, it's properly specified. Do we care where it comes from? We don't need to parse the response. We can also remove extensions. Actually, let's just.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with remove. If we ship with or without extensions, probably okay. Yeah.
I think that makes more sense. We don't care where it comes from. We just keep it in. And probably we can do the same thing, Valentine, with the coordinate. Like even if we don't want to expose it, we can maybe we can add it.
Yeah. So I think it's worth at least leaving a comment on the we should debate the security of exposing the path. Do you think it's worth at least making a note, Pascal?
Well, the path is exposed anyway. That's default graphical specification. The point that Valentine has was that it's very hard to, when you have a path and you have an error, it's very hard to find out what this path points to. And exposing the schema coordinate gives you some information about the schema, and only because we have it in tracing, I don't think you would have to expose it. So we could just add it into tracing without actually exposing it. So that at least in the traces, you can correlate the error with the result.
Exactly. It's a concern of the gateway or GraphQL schema implementations to just not forward this to the client or forward it if you prefer. Because in my mind, if you you're already screwed up if you rely on the fact that your schema is private. It's never a good security way of just trying to hide your schema.
I agree. The security by obscurity is bad first line of defense.
So Valentin, that I thought what you were suggesting when you were saying it's hard to correlate, it was that we add some sort of identification to the schema that generated the error to the event? Is that not where you want, like an easier way to correlate?
Sorry,
Well,
I didn't understood.
the thing is that we would like to say if there was, let's say we have an unexpected error, and this error happens always on the query. That's a stupid example because then we know anyway. Let's say it always happens on the user.address resolver. And now we have a lot of graphical errors, and they all point to a field, which is the user.address resolver. But the paths are completely different. Like it could be user by ID and then address, but it could also be users and then 0 address, users 1 address, users 2 address, and all of these things. Whereas all of these keys, all of these errors actually are errors of the user.address field, right? So you could group them together when you look from the coordinate point of view, much, much better than when you look from the path view, because the path essentially is dynamic.
Yes, makes sense.
I do see the value of adding it, and we don't have to expose it if we have security concern, Valentine. We can also just keep it in. But it's actually a good thing to add it here. Just make a comment, and then I will add it to the thing. Then you get the credits.
Got it. I see it. Yeah, yeah. Of course, it's something you can resolve from. I don't even know if you can resolve. No, yeah, I see it. I see it because it's actionable. Okay, so what I was thinking, which I think is a concern, but I don't think it matters because the way I was interpreting is like when you see a span event with this error, and let's say you already updated your schema application or something, um, does it? Do we ever like have concerns about like is this user dot like let's say your example is just sent here user dot friends? Am I looking at the right version of the schema, or is this for the previous version that was deployed like last week? Like, do we ever care about like, am I looking at the right version of this application? And that brings me to, I was thinking like, do we have the ID of the document in the error or the hash or something like that? Or like, I don't know if that's necessary. Yeah.
So when we use span events, I don't think we have the issue.
Because they should be attached to a span. Yeah, that makes sense. You're part of a trace. Yeah.
The trace carries. We did talk about it. Doesn't the trace carry the schema hash? Why is it not in?
I remember we added it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we define where span
Perhaps
is?
it's still a PR. No?
Yeah, I did find that, Pascal, we have the ID and we have the hash, document ID and document hash. Yeah.
But is this in the registry?
It is in the, yeah, if you open your, I think it's the first PR, the initial OTel spec, number 32, that one has it.
Yeah, but this one adds the document hash and the document ID, right?
That's right, yeah. Is it, yeah, go ahead.
I think we need more. I think we need more. I think we need the schema information as well, so that you know
Oh, yes.
you know which let me phrase it correctly. You know which schema version this trace happened against, because you're right, it actually matters what schema you executed to. There. And
But you're right, it's a bigger issue, the big issue for the whole trace, right? Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't add it to all spans, like otherwise we duplicate this to all events, because otherwise we duplicate this information like 50 times in the same trace.
Right.
But for the root trace, I think it makes sense to add it so that you at least have a correlation. What do we need? We need a schema version.
I actually don't know what's used for in production to version the schema.
A user-defined string. Wait, 1 second. Didn't we have? Let me see.
I got a lazy way to use the git hash of the application at the time, but then it's not the application. It can be federated. Oh my god, it can be federated.
Well,
Yeah.
the problem is, Marco, that the schema can change on the fly. In
Yeah.
gateways, this happens always, right? So that you publish a new subgraph. The subgraph then causes a new composition, and the gateway actually never restarts. So the service dot version is the same. So we can't reuse this. It's also service dot version could be 16 point whatever, and the schema could be foobar buts whatever. So it must be a human identifiable and user provided information about the schema. And I know that we talked about it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about it.
Let me see.
Perhaps it's in the distributed GraphQL PR.
1 second. No, it's not there.
Where is
I know that I think Benji raised it, if I remember it correctly. But we did not put. I just checked the OTel, this one, this document. But it's not in there too. So I think we need a schema version. Schema. This is
There's such thing a hash. We get a hash of the whole thing.
we can have a schema hash too.
Yeah, not really my area of expertise, to be honest. I would say people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anything against the hash. The hash could also be the version or the identifier, whatever.
Yeah.
The point is that this can change and
Yeah.
oops.
Yeah, not sure which one. I think you can have both, or either one, or none of them.
Well, the
Entirely
hash, the
depends.
thing about the hashes is that you can identify for example, you guys in Hive, you can identify really easily which version of the gateway this this points to, because you have the hash of the schema, right? Well, technically, that's also not true, because the hash can be the same even though that's the subgraphs change. Technically, like the schema, public schema doesn't have to change. You can just change, progress when you have these override scenarios and so on. The schema is different, the execution plan is different, but well, no, it's also not true, because you load the supergraph schema, which has a unique hash. Yeah. Okay.
It
But
can
anyway,
probably happen that the schema, the supergraph schema, hasn't really changed semantically, but like some type definition swapped their place in the the SDL, and then you have a different representation of the same supergraph. Like it's the same graph, but the SDL, the actual SDL, is different, so you have a different hash. I don't know how console is actually identifying a schema version. I know they have some sort of ID which look like a hash, but I don't know how it's computed.
Yeah,
I know
sounds
that
like
Apollo have like a hashing, a signature. They call it a signature, where they have some rules about how to print the schema or the document so that it's as stable as possible, so that the hash are comparables.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really like, I'm not sure about the hash, but I'm sure that we need some sort of identifier. What this is, I think, is very implementation specific. But I agree with Marco's sentiment that it's actually important to know which version this query ran
Yeah.
on. Because you can then also in the tooling say that actually, this is out of date. Like this trace may not matter anymore.
Yeah, from a tooling like vendor, I would like people to just implement the GraphQL server, and then I fetch their introspection schema, and then I match with the right representation, right, the right visualization, and you'll be good to just be automatic, right? Like no one has to do anything. I can always match precisely. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, this is like a bigger discussion. Okay, thanks for creating the issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think that Apollo calls it signature, schema signature, and operation signature, I think, if I remember.
Signatures. It's my favorite now. Signature.
When you say signature, it sounds like a catch-all. That I can think of many things. I mean, yeah, a hash, a fancy hash, right? Or like just a yeah, I don't know.
Well, I agree with Valentine. Like the actual value of a hash I see in trusted documents, but the representation of a schema is different because you do not necessarily need an STL to create the graphical server. You can just build a graphical server and then expose it over introspection. And it could just be that depending on how, like we have this problem in .NET, like if the reflection is not stable. So if you define your properties A, B, C, it could be that when you use reflection, you get A, B, C, and the next time you use reflection, when you restart the service, you get B, C, D, B, C, A. The order is not stable. So it could be that you don't get the same schema twice, which would mean that even though that there's no semantic changes, you just restarted your service, you get a different hash. Also, a hash means that you actually have to compute the string during runtime, which is also something like you could like write into a stream and whatever, but you have to compute this hash during runtime, which in big schemas might not be something that you want to do. So we'll see.
Yeah. When I say hash, I wasn't thinking of hash of the DSL. I was thinking of a hash of the type system, and it will be, to be honest, implementation dependent. Like you're saying, Pascal, it's like, is it just a hash of my classes? As long as it's stable and it's a hash of something that's, yeah, but you're right. Like if it's unstable, and if it's unstable, does it mean that when you send two introspection queries at different times, you get different results, right?
No. Depends. If the service, it's not how do you say deterministic. So once it's loaded, it could be that it's stable, but the main problem is like you have multiple instances of the service, so it could be that the introspection is slightly different and the order is different and you name it.
Okay.
So from a DSL perspective, I'm not sure if we can, or even type system, I'm not sure if we can actually make a consistent hash, but it doesn't matter. Like there is some kind of signature version identifier that we can provide, which uniquely identifies this version of the thing that runs. Whatever this is, we just need to describe it, that there is a way to provide this information.
Makes sense.
Okay, then we have 7 minutes left. I actually wanted to start talking about meters today as well. And just like as we are off for a couple of months after this call, I just want to place the seeds into your heads so that it can grow over Christmas. And then in January, we have a tree of ideas, forest of ideas that we can pick from. So metrics generally in GraphQL are going to be very, very simple, because otherwise Barco's employer is very happy about cardinality issues of their customers. No, the thing is that due to the fact that we only have one endpoint, and that people can provide arbitrary queries, operation names, and whatever, which can lead to arbitrary hashes, it's not really possible to use meters in any meaningful way, like a meter per subscription type, or a meter per coordinate, or a meter per whatever. All of this doesn't work. Like, it's impossible for this to work because the SDK limit is 2000, and more than this you will never be able to export. And it's also not a good idea to have this many meters. So we can't have meters per field. We can't have meters per operation. So the only thing that I see meters to be used in this in the case of GraphQL is how many active operations you have. That's 1 meter, which I personally use a lot because we have already implemented this one, and I think it's really helpful. Then we can talk about opt-ins like type cost, field cost, but that's like only when you implement the IBM cost specification, which is like a big if, because if you don't do it, then you don't have a cost that you have to report on, right? So what we have to figure out is how deep we want to go with these meters and what we want to describe. Like even things like validation, parsing, coercing is something which is a bit hard because we can add it. And I think a meter for parsing duration, a meter for validation duration, a meter for variable coercion duration, and so on. I think this all makes sense, but you will never be able to correlate it to an operation. So you see the problem. Like there could be one operation which is the poison pill, and which just takes ages to validate. And you will see it in the validation span that there is an operation in the validation duration meter, that there is an outlier, because it's a histogram, there is something which takes ages to validate, but you don't know which one. You only know that there is one, and you will never know which one because you can't correlate. So this is a problem I see.
Yeah. Do we assume that you cannot run these analytics on the span data because we have span for validation, for resolvers and everything, and they have duration and timestamps. Like at least for us as a vendor, like we allow people to just get this aggregated data and like we call them metrics out of the span data. So it is redundant in a specific system, but I'm assuming the way you're describing, you don't assume that people can just create metrics from spans, right?
Well, that's very implementation specific. No, I'm talking about doing something which is an actual open telemetry meter. So we say this is a counter. This is for example, active operations is a up-down counter, right? And then we can have something like validation duration would be a histogram, where we say that it's in millisecond and it's a float. And these are things that we can specify, which can add value to the system. I think what we have to do is we have to read through the existing meters, and then in general, not the graphical meters, like in general, like the HTTP meters, I don't know, your language of choice, ASP.NET Core, HTTP meters, whatever. Just read through them and see what prior art there is in other languages, in other ecosystems, what they use for meters, and then we can convene in January, and we can discuss what we want to add. So actually, let's add this.
Because I was thinking, like, if you have in your example the validation time histogram in combination with exemplars, if you have tracing enabled, you will be able to see some spans that are linked to this huge execute validation time bucket. Like you will be able to find out at least some example of traces where validation went wrong at least.
Mhm.
So perhaps for GraphQL, exemplar will be very important to make any sense of measures that we will have.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, for stuff like active operations, of course, that's something you can't derive from others. I think it's like kind of important. Yeah. The only thing I think is that like, is it redundant with the HTTP layer, active operations or active connections? I don't know if, yeah. No, it actually might not be.
That's so out of my experience, it's not the case because
Yeah.
what I see people do is they have one graphical server, which also is the REST API, which also is the gRPC API, which also
Yeah.
is whatever API, and it doesn't correlate. But
That's
I can very quickly tell you with active operations which like what operation type is causing an issue when you have thousands of active operations.
mhm.
So
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Mm.
so I will add these parsing variable and
Resolving. I don't know. It's all right.
it's we can discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I want to say, Pascal, just in terms of like uh some insights I've been finding, but talking to customers, like both internal and external, is that the issue just you brought up when you first started talking about meters, which is like our cardinality just explodes everything for GraphQL if you try to visualize it like for every single request. One thing that we've been talking about and people have been more or less receptive is if we if we don't think about the GraphQL from the point of the customer making requests, but more from the person maintaining the server, uh, I was suggesting people and like they're like, oh, might make sense is instead of the cardinality being on the request, on the query, on the mutation, it is on the root field, root query, root mutation, and then that's how you would generate the metrics on. So the metrics from list all users, get create user, and those are bounded because they're bounded by your schema. They don't change like unboundedly, and they're directly tied to your application. And people are like, oh yeah, that seems like a good way to visualize. I'm not saying that's the right way. We haven't yet deployed it yet, but people have been receptive to like that as the cardinality for a lot of the observability. Yeah.
If you build your application right, then this would not be that helpful. Because how GraphQL works is that GraphQL is a UI framework, so to say. It's a server implementation, but it's for the UI. And what Relay does is if you think about a page where you have your user avatar here with your username and email address, and you have a list of products, and you have a list of categories, and you may have a search bar, and you may have, I don't know, recently bought products. Then on this page, you have root fields. You have me for the viewer, so me with username, with avatar, with email address. You have products with the list of products. Then you will have the categories on the left side, and you will have the recently bought products on the right side, or however you want to do it. Now, if you use Relay or Apollo in the late Apollo client, I believe, meantime in the latest version, or Urquell or whatever, this page will make one GraphQL request. And it will say that this component uses the products field, this component uses the me field, this component uses the categories field, and so on. And it will compose that together into one request. So you would actually end up with 5, 6, 7 root fields in one graphical request. That's a page load normally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the correlation. In case of mutations, I agree with you. Most of the time it's one. You can have more than one. They are executed sequentially, but most of the time you have one mutation. In the queries, it can be anything. Like it's also not predictable from a UI developer what actually is included because they only need to reference a fragment and a new component, and then it could be that half of the schema is included in a request. So they don't know.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, in the case where we have 5 different root queries, you would create 5 separate entities for each.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. It's like in your, I don't know if that's what you're alluding, but like in an ideal schema, your users just have everything inside, and it can be like can be super complicated. Like have like 5 top-level entities, and everything is nested. But yeah, like, I'm just saying in general, it's like. Sometimes people want to see those, but I agree with you that like it doesn't work for every case.
I think the better your schema design is, the less benefit root fields have, because we have root fields for everything.
Yeah.
Like it's the bigger your schema gets. Like we don't have namespacing. Facebook has like I don't know how many thousand mutations. So even there, the cardinality would explode, right?
Mm.
That's actually a good thing. On the mutation side, the cardinality is actually quite high, but you have the same issue on REST as well. Like if you have 2,000 REST endpoints, then you also have high cardinality there.
Yeah. We normally concern with cardinality when it's not humanly created. I guess you could argue that in the size of Facebook, if they're creating hundreds every day because of semi-automatic systems, it's not. Thousands are okay. 100,000 is bad.
100,000, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we are over time. And it's the last meeting before Christmas. It's October 23rd. It's the last meeting before Christmas. As I said, so next time is Thanksgiving, then we have Christmas, so we'll meet end of January again. And if we don't catch each other, I wish you a happy new year already. I guess I'm the first one to do this year, but
Yeah.
I wish you a happy new year. And if you celebrate Christmas, also a Merry Christmas. And
Yeah.
let's define some meters over Christmas.
Yeah, happy holidays, happy New Year.
Presents
Yeah.
for you.
See you later. Bye bye.
Bye.